Welcome back to Story Time, everyone. And today's story is another story by Julia Donaldson, and it's a rhyming story, and it is called The Snail and the Whale. And when I went out into my garden this morning, I managed to find a snail who's been sitting on this leaf. So the snail is here. I've got my snail ready for the story, and I have my whale ready for the story. So that's 3 rhyming words we can learn today. The whale's tail, whale, and snail. Tail, whale, snail. All rhyming words that you're going to hear when I read my story. So if you get your listening hands ready, we can make a start. Are we ready? It's listening time, it's listening time. Shh. Here's the story. This is the tale of a tiny snail and a great big blue humpback whale. This is the rock as black as soot, and this is the snail with an itchy foot. And the snail slithered all over the rock and gazed at the sea and the ships in the dock. And as she gazed, she sniffed and she sighed. The sea is deep and the world is so wide. How I long to sail, said the tiny snail. So she wants to go on a journey across the sea. But snails can't swim, so I wonder how she's going to go on her adventures. These are the other snails on the flock, who all stuck tight to the smooth black rock, and said to the snail with the itchy foot, "Be quiet, don't wriggle, stay still, stay put." But the tiny sea snail sighed and sniffed, then cried, "I've got it, I'll hitch a lift." This is the trail of the tiny snail, and the slithery trail that looped and curled and said, "Lift wanted around the world." Wow, look at this huge whale like the one Mrs Liu had. This is the whale who came one night when the tide was high and the stars were bright. A humpback whale, immensely long, who sang to the snail a wonderful song of shimmering ice cream and coral caves and shooting stars and enormous waves. And this is the tail of the humpback whale. He held it out of the starlit sea and said to the snail, "Come sail with me." So the snail is climbing up onto the whale's tail so he can go on the adventures across the sea. This is the sea, so wild and free, that carried the whale and the snail on his tail to towering icebergs and far off lands, all in the Antarctic, or it may be the Arctic, where the seals and the penguins live. And this week I asked you to put some ice in your freezer and to make a special ice land where you could play with all your toys. Now look, they look like they're moving to a very hot place. So they've gone from a cold place now to a very hot place, with fiery mountains and golden sands. What do we call this here in the background coming out of the tall mountain here? It's a volcano, that's right. So that would be very, very hot. Let's see where they go next on their adventure. The snail on the tail of the whale. These are the waves that arched and crashed, that foamed and frolicked and sprayed and splashed. The tiny snail on the tail of the whale. And these are the caves beneath the waves, where stripy fish with feathery fins and sharks with hideous toothy grins swam around the whale and the snail on his tail. And this is the sky, so vast and high, sometimes sunny and blue and warm, and sometimes filled with thunderstorms and zigzag lightning flashing and frightening the tiny snail on the tail of the whale. Can you see? Look, he's hanging on very, very tight as the whale goes swimming through those rough, rough waters in the storm. And she gazed at the sky and the sea and the land, the waves and the caves and the golden sand. She gazed and she gazed, amazed by it all. And she said to the whale, "I feel so small." So you can see the huge mountains in the background, a big bird, a really big whale, and a big bear, and then the tiny, tiny little snail on the whale's tail. So she's feeling very, very small. But then came the day the whale lost his way. These are the speedboats running a race, zigzagging and zooming all over the place, upsetting the whale with their ear-splitting roar, making him swim too close to the shore. The shore is where the water and the sand meet together. That's called the seashore. And this is the tide slipping away. Oh no, the whale looks like he's getting stuck. The sea isn't deep enough for him. And yes, look, he is. He's a beached whale. He's now on the beach, nowhere near the water, and he's too big and he can't move by himself. He's in a lot of trouble. I wonder who could help him. And this is the whale laying beached in the bay. "Quick, off the sand, go back to the sea," cried the snail. "I can't move on land, I'm too big," moaned the whale. The snail felt helpless and terribly small. Then, "I've got it," she cried, and she started to crawl. "It must not fail," said the tiny snail. Look, she's going off. I wonder where she's going to get help, to see if she can rescue the whale who's been so kind to her and has been taking her for adventures on his tail. Ah, I wonder where that snail has ended up. This is the bell on the school in the bay, ringing the children to come in from their play. This is the teacher holding her chalk, telling the class, "Sit straight, don't talk." This is the board, as black as soot. And this is the snail with the itchy foot. "A snail! A snail!" The teacher turns pale. "Look," say the children, "it's leaving a trail." This is the trail of the tiny snail, a silvery trail, saying, "Save the whale." How clever! The snail has managed to write a message on the board to get someone to come and help that whale who's stranded on the beach. These are the children running from school, fetching the fireman and digging a pool, squirting and spraying to keep the whale cool. This is the tide coming in to the bay, and these are the villagers shouting "Hooray!" as the whale and the snail travel safely away. How clever! They've dug another pool out of the sand so that the water from the sea came into the pool, filled it up with water, and then the whale was in the water where he belongs, and then he could swim away with the snail still holding on very, very tight to the whale's tail. And there's all the children and the teachers and the firemen all waving goodbye. They should be very proud of themselves because they've rescued the whale. Back to the dock and the flock on the rock, who said, "How time's flown, and haven't you grown?" And the whale and the snail told their wonderful tale of shimmering ice and coral caves, of shooting stars and enormous waves, and how the snail, so small and frail, with her looping, curling, silvery trail, saved the life of the humpback whale. And the humpback whale held out his tail, and on crawled snail after snail after snail. Look, they're all going onto the whale's tail to see if they can go for a ride too. See if they can have the same adventure as the tiny snail did. There they all go. They're all on the whale's tail all together. And they sang to the sea as they all set sail on the tail of the grey, blue, humped-back whale. They've all gone into the distance, into the sea. That was a lovely story, wasn't it? All about the snail. Where is he? Here's the snail. Here, still fast asleep, I think, on my leaf. Hasn't really moved the whole time I read the story. But this little tiny snail, or a snail like this one, saved the life of this huge blue humpback whale. So something so tiny could save the life of something so big by being very kind and very clever and working out a plan to rescue the whale. I hope you enjoyed today's story, and I will be back again later to read you some more stories, and we're going to do some rhymes this week as well. So take care, have a good day, work hard on all your snail activities, and I will come back and see you again very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.